Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Well, tomorrow is No King's Day and I will be covering that. I will be covering a couple of protests for the paper. So there's two out here in the western suburbs of Chicago. There's a really huge one in downtown Chicago at Daly Plaza and all over the country, except there isn't one in Washington, D.C. We're just going to have the tiny dictator have a small crowd for his birthday parade. Anyway, what I thought I would do on this video is talk about what I will be using to photograph these protests for the paper, and also if you're planning on going to any of these protests, a few tips to try and stay safe and in case certain things happen. So we'll get to that in a moment, but of course I will be covering with my G9 Mark II, my LUMIX G9 Mark II, and my 14-140 lens. I will not be using my 12-35 2.8 or my 35-100 2.8 because these protests are outside and I really am going to need the flexibility to have this long zoom range, which field of view wise is 28 to 280 millimeters. So now, in case I need wider, there might be a couple of times I need a wider angle lens, I will take my Leica 8 to 18 millimeter of 2.8 to f4. I also, oops, not in here, here it is. I will also have as a backup my LX100 Mark II in the bag. Also, what I do is I will have this set to the 16:9 aspect ratio, so I can grab some overall sort of semi-panoramic shots of the protests. But really that's all I'm going to need for this. And quality wise, this lens, if you put two images up on the screen, one taken with one of the f2.8 zooms and another taken with this lens, you can see a little bit of a quality difference. Those lenses contrast amazingly good. This lens, decent contrast, not quite at the level of the f2.8 Pro zooms. Still pretty good. I wouldn't even hesitate to photograph some events with this with a flash, in case I need that wide zoom range. So that's what I will be using tomorrow. Now, some things to talk about if you are planning on going to these protests or any protest, and I hope you will consider going to protests, because this is the land of we the people, not me, the dictator. It is the land of government of, by, and for the people. Not what we have now, folks. It is the land of all persons get due process. Read the Fifth Amendment and the 14th Amendment. Doesn't say anything about due process being only for citizens. It says all persons. And frankly, as photographers, we like to travel, right? We like to do travel photography. Would you travel to a country that doesn't extend due process rights to visitors to that country, whether or not they came in legally? Because if they can take away due process rights from the people they are doing that to, they're not going to stop with citizens. They've already deported citizens by accident because they just picked them up the street and didn't use due process to find out if they were people that should be deported, because that is how it's supposed to work. So if you go to these protests, a couple things. One, there are rumors that certain far-right, dare I say, terrorist organizations, because, they did try to storm the Capitol on January 6th. That was actually a riot. The protests so far, there have been isolated incidences of violence and vandalism. There's always some bad actors, but for the most part, the protests have been very, very peaceful. Media is not really letting you know that. They're telling you how many people have been arrested and such, instead of focusing on how many people were there and overall, what was it like. So there are rumors that these right-wing agitators are going to come in and try and cause trouble. They're going to attack the police. Why not? They did on January 6th, and they are going to vandalize. What is the response to that? Sit down. Have everybody sit down. Do not engage them. Sit down. Show that you are not a part of that. So that makes it easy for the police, who are there actually to protect people? I had a talk with a Chicago police officer at a large event, and he says, people need to understand, we're just here to try and keep order. And in most cases, police officers, that's what they do. Bad actors in that group too. Everybody has one. So just make sure you don't engage those people. You see that happening, have everybody sit down. It makes it very clear that you're not part of what's going on. Number two, turn off your Face ID. Oop, it's over here. Turn off your Face ID, turn off your thumbprint ID. Don't have those active because, and this is, I find this incredibly silly. And this has gone to federal court here in the United States, and what the courts have said is if you have Face ID or fingerprint ID active on your phone, you don't have any expectation of privacy. If you have those deactivated and you have to enter in your passcode, then they can't do that. But the police can force you to unlock your phone by holding it up to your face and then getting into it. They can force you to put your thumb on the thumb reader. They can't force you to enter a code. Like I say, I think this is just incredibly stupid. I mean, it's like saying that if a police officer shows up to your door and they see you through the window, they have the right to come in without a warrant. So yeah, if you just have the passcode ID set, they need a warrant to get into your phone. That could probably be changed by statute, you know. You have a law that just says, oh, by the way, the Fifth Amendment covers, you know, Face ID and Thumb ID, etc. Simple to do. We have passed laws in this country to clarify what the Constitution says, so we need to do that. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you're in one of the protests that I cover, I will see you there. Stay safe, defend democracy, and stand up against these fascists. I'm Todd Banner. I'll see you in the next video. Oh, one more thing. Comments obviously are going to be held. I don't argue with far-right MAGA folks. And just to be clear, I don't argue with far-left communists either. In my book, they're just as bad. Either way, they want to implement a dictatorship. And if you're in a dictatorship, it doesn't matter what the economic theory it was started under, your life still sucks. That's it for now. I'll see you next time.